I'm Charlie Bright of Gold Derby, and today I'm speaking with Garth Jennings, the director of Sing 2, which will be released by Universal in theaters on December 22nd as part of our Meet the Experts panels for film animation. First thing I wanted to ask you, Garth, is how did you come to voice Miss Crawley in this thing? Because that was she had some of my favorite parts of the movie.
Yeah, Miss Crawley was, and you've talked to some of the other guys on their project about the fact that so many of these films start with scratch, the scratch process with storyboards, and before you get the actors on, we just work using the voices of people in the studio. And I would do a lot of the voices of the characters because I was writing it as well, so it was easy to just do that. And one of those was Miss Crawley. So originally for Sing, it was only going to be the scratch voice, but I just loved being her, and sort of it just stuck. It was one of those voices that just stuck. And yeah, you're right. Her part sort of expanded in the sequel. She's a very useful character. She can get a lot of things done in a sort of remarkably unique, lizardy way. So yeah, yeah. I've ended up being an elderly lizard. It's my calling in life, clearly.
I mean, I don't think you could ask for anything more. And there's like the scene where she takes over directing the whole thing is like, yeah, that is just like comedy gold.
Thank you. I'm very proud of that scene. I think she steps up pretty well. I also like the fact that at the beginning, to get her orders, Buster Moon says to her, listen, you cannot let production fall behind, not one little bit. Is that clear? And I always feel like that's, real. That's like us. We just can't let this fail. Everyone has to keep going. Yes, no, she has such a good time. It's also nice to score it like a war movie, like the drums come in and she's gonna get it done. It's nice to see somebody completely inept step up.
Yeah. So one of the striking things about the look of this movie is getting to see Redshore City. It's this, expansive and meticulously detailed setting. What was it like to design that and then to bring that to life in animation?
That was nuts. I'd never been to Vegas before. I'm from a little town in Essex in England. But I thought I knew it. You see it in films. You see it. It's like the Mona Lisa. You kind of feel like you know what it is. You don't need to see it for real. But Chris Meledandri was like, no, you have to go. It's extraordinary. And I'm really glad I did go for a couple of reasons. One, because the scale of the place sort of blew my mind. I remember I was going to go and see one of the Cirque du Soleil shows one night. I'd never seen one before. I went to meet my producer said, oh, let's meet at the lobby at 6:30 because it starts at 7. I was like, well, if it's in the same hotel, we don't need to meet at 6:30. It doesn't take half an hour to walk to see. She says, no, it does. That's how big this hotel is. It's like, it isn't. Sure enough, we meet and we're walking for 20 minutes. We're still inside the same hotel. And I was thinking, God, if you walk for that long in my town, you'd be in the next town. And it was just one hotel. It blew my mind. And then you go and see a show, like a Cirque du Soleil show, like Car. And it's just staggering every second, the scale and ambition and the ingenuity and the athleticism. So I was very inspired by that trip. Also about how much people love, how many families go and people have a totally different experience. And it's really beloved. So yeah, it was trying to capture how lovely that feels, how grand, enormous, and how lovely it would be for the cast of Sing to arrive somewhere like that. When in the first film, when they're in rubble or in their little apartments or in a garage, it's all very small in the first movie. So it's kind of deluxe for them. Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously with the title like Sing and the plot, you have a lot of wonderful uses of songs in there. But I'm curious, do you have a personal favorite artist that you would have liked to have incorporated one of their songs into the film, either the first one or the second one?
There's never been a song that we did. Everything's in there for a reason. The thing is, it's always informed by the story. Very often, the songs are being written as I'm writing the script. Or even if it's not the final thing that's in the movie, it's like it needs this kind of a song. It's like a flag in the ground. Do you know what I mean? Like it needs to feel like this and do this work because it has to serve the story. It's not, you can't just put anything in there. There are moments where it's just fun and that's okay. But most of the time that music has to do a lot of work. So it's not been a case of feeling like there's nothing I've missed out on anything, because I feel like whatever's in there is in there because it's doing a very important job on a lot of levels. It's fun, it's doing the right emotional thing, and it's working for the character and the overall kind of musical palette of the film.
Which that actually makes me think, was it ever tough to find a corresponding song to go with a moment in the movie? Was that ever a difficult thing to find?
It's not so much difficult. It can be, but most of the time it's difficult you'll have two or three and you're like, I don't know, you'll try them out, and some will do one thing well, but not one other thing. It's hard to explain really, but because music's weird and everyone has a strange, their own unique perspective on it. There's a small team of us working on it, but we'll all have our own passionate view on it. But at the end of the day, it will always come down to, does that feel right in the moment? And sometimes I'll be writing it and be utterly convinced that the idea I've got on the page here is going to be perfect for that scene. And then you put it in that scene, you're like, oh, that didn't work at all. And then you sort of go back to the drawing board and we work with other people and come up with other ideas. And suddenly something will come along that really surprises you. And, like there's a bus journey scene, and I knew it should be emotional, and I had a track in mind that just didn't work. And then we found a song I've always loved by Mercury Rev called Holes, which is not a very well-known song, but it's sort of beautiful and has exactly the right tone. And it really surprised me how well it worked there. Some things will be conventional and some things will be something you really don't expect. It's there's no science to it. It's a lot of chatting and a lot of listening.
To look at your career as a whole, prior to
it makes no sense.
No, it makes sense. It makes sense. But I wanted to pull back and looking at your career as a whole. I didn't realize prior to this, because I had heard the name Hammer and Tongs before as like music video directors. I did not know that you were part of that. You and Nick Goldsmith were a part of that. And so something that I've always been curious about, how did you guys come up with the name Hammer and Tongs?
Oh, Hammer and Tongs was just an expression to go at something. Hammer and Tongs was to go at it with all you've got. And we were like, that'll do. We were just fresh. We were in art school making music videos for like 200 quid. And we needed a collective name. And it's hard choosing a name, like choosing the music for a film. So, because it's very hard to agree on anything. It was the only one we didn't all hate. And we just stuck like names do. We became Hammer and Tongs and started making music videos together. Yeah.
You've made quite a few great music videos. Not just as part of Hammer and Tongs. I remember the Eels video, Last Stop. What's it called?
Yeah. Last Stop This Town. Yeah.
Last Stop This Town.
Yeah.
I always remember seeing that one on MTV for the first time. And and you've done stuff for REM and one of my favorite bands, Radiohead. I'm just curious.
I love that band.
Do you have a personal favorite music video that you've worked on either on your own or as part of Hammer and Tongs?
A favorite. They were all great experiences. One of the most fun experiences, like that, they're all different sort of ideas. They have their different merits, I suppose. But I know for sure that all of us who worked on the Supergrass video, Pumping on Your Stereo, with the Jim Henson Company, where we created puppet bodies, that was the most fun you could possibly have on a set. That really was 2 days of just joy, total joy from start to finish. But they were all, to be honest, most of the time it was always a good time. Like we were doing these mad ideas, somebody let us do them, and we were doing it with our friends. They were all our friends on the crew. So for music you loved, it doesn't get better than that. So, but Supergrass with the puppets, and that was the first time I'd met the Henson Company as well. So it was a sort of a very special time.
Well, Garth, thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you on our panel in just a little bit.
See you in a bit.